Hello everybody, it's Josie here. Today I'm going to be doing a book review on a recent book that I read, but also while I was reading this book, music or musicians are mentioned a lot in this book, and I kind of wanted to do another one, and I think I did this quite a while ago. I did a video where I paired books with music. So I sometimes like to have a soundtrack when I read, and I think some books really lend themselves to certain types of music. So what I was going to do is I'm going to review the book that I've just read. I'm going to recommend, it's, believe me, not revolutionary, really obvious when you read the book, soundtrack or album to go along with it. And then I'm going to recommend some other kind of book and album pairings. So let me know if you like this kind of video. I really like it because I love music. I want to do more music videos anyway. But I think it's kind of a cool way to pair music with books. But let me know what you think. So the book that I'm going to be talking about, because, you know, it is BookTube, is this book over here. It is Love Letters to the Dead, but Ava Delara. Oh, I murdered that name. But anyway, Ava Delara, Love Letters to the Dead. I found this in a charity shop. I was really excited. So some of the kind of normal or non-essential shops have just opened here in the UK, and my local charity shop, one of them's opened. And I wandered in because I love charity shops and I love to kind of find books there secondhand, and I found this one, so I was really quite pleased about this. So, first of all, the title grabbed me. I love the idea of Love Letters to the Dead, which I thought was interesting. And then when I read the back, I thought it sounded like an interesting book. And you know what? It really is. It's a great book, in my opinion. So, you have, what's her name? Laurel. Yeah, so you have Laurel, and her sister May is dead. And the book starts where Laurel is given an assignment in English class. The assignment is to write a letter to a dead person. And you're supposed to just write one letter, and it's an assignment for school. What Laurel starts doing is she starts writing these letters, and the book starts with Dear Kurt Cobain, which, you know, I mean, I'm a massive Nirvana fan. It's one of the bands I grew up with. I adore Kurt Cobain. So, you know, that had me hooked. And throughout the book, the entire book is told through her writing letters to various dead celebrities. And, you know, you start to unravel what happened, you start to unravel what's going on in her mind, what's going on around her, with her family, with her sister. And it's really kind of a meditation and a dealing with grief, dealing with your feelings towards someone who you feel has betrayed you, but they're gone, so you can't kind of tell them, your own guilt, all of those things. It is a beautiful book. I think it's very sensitively written. Obviously, there are trigger warnings in there for kind of depression and also dealing with grief and dealing with death. But I think it's beautifully handled. I love the idea of writing these kind of letters to these dead celebs. It's a nice way of doing it. And she kind of tends to pick the person that she feels will resonate with kind of that part of her life or that part of her story or that emotion that she's currently going through. And yeah, I just thought the whole book was just a beautiful kind of concept, idea, and meditation on that. And obviously it starts with Kurt Cobain, and she very specifically mentions a lot of music. Janis Joplin is another artist that's heavily mentioned in here. The Doors. So it is like some of my favourite artists, which I love, but it's really beautiful, and you kind of almost can hear the music running through your head as you're reading it, that kind of soundtrack to the book. What I also loved about the book is there is a side story between her two friends, and these girls are friends, but there is more to their relationship as well. So there's a beautiful kind of a very complex queer female relationship going on in this book, and I think that's a really interesting part of it. The other trigger that I would say is also for sexual assault in this book, so please be aware of that going in. But I just think it's got some hard-hitting topics, but done in a very beautiful way, and I think a very unique way with these kind of letters that she's writing to these dead celebrities. So like I said, music very heavily featured, and one of the albums that she listens to a lot, that was actually her sister's album, May's album that she listened to a lot, is this one over here. So this is In Utero by Nirvana, and it was really funny. I finished reading this book. I was reading the end of this book and I put on Neutro and it's just perfect. But yeah, so that's kind of what got me thinking was, it's mentioned throughout the book. You have all these albums, these bands, and sort of this album, if you're going to listen to this album while reading this book, it's kind of perfect because, it's constantly mentioned in its reference. And also, I think it gives you a way to get into the character's head because I think music is so emotional and evocative, and I know that I put on different kinds of music depending on what my moods are and how I feel, or how I want to feel, or what kind of mood I want to be in. So for me, I love that idea of you actually getting into the character's head a bit more when you know what music they're listening to, kind of what their state of mind is. So with that in mind, like I said, I've also now picked some books that I've read that I think are good to soundtrack to. So the first one I'm going to talk about, and this is a recent read, and this is a recent favourite book, is this book over here, Skin by Kate Koja. And this is about a Tess, who is a metal worker, and BB, and their kind of messed up relationship and these shows that they create, these metalwork come dancing, crazy, bloodletting, there's a lot to do with blood and cutting, and even the cover of this book, you've got the metal and then you've got the drop of blood in it. And really, the album that I thought was perfect is this one over here, is Concrete Blonde. And the album is called Bloodletting. Also, they go really well together. Concrete Blonde, I love. They are 80s, 90s. I think this album was from the early 2000s, but it may be a reissue. This is one of their classic albums. I adore Concrete Blonde. They write really great alternative rock music with interesting themes. And this one particular has a lot of, so the first song is Bloodletting is the vampire song. So this would be great if you're reading a book of vampires as well. But I think that these kind of rock, quite desolate, some of the lyrics, these songs really suit the book Skin. And I think these two would be fantastic soundtrack together. Then the next one is a book that I have just started reading, and honestly, I do not know, I'm mad at myself for not reading this book earlier because I'm loving it. I think it's fantastic, and I'm going to do a book review on it, and I've got the sequel, so I'll do a book review on that. But it's this book over here. It's Fanboy and Goth Girl, and this is The Astonishing Adventures of Fanboy and Goth Girl by Barry Elijah. Like I said, I've heard this book has been around for ages. I've sort of seen it around. I just haven't read it yet, and I'm so glad I have. And the second book I've got up there is Goth Girl Rising, which is the sequel, so I can't wait to do that and kind of do a whole review on it. But with this book, it's Fanboy is like a comic book nerd. He's very ostracized and bullied at school, and he meets Kira, who is Goth Girl in the title, and that's kind of where I am at the moment, just where their friendship is starting. But right off the bat for me, so for Akira, she's a goth. So I thought, why not go, classic and predictable and do The Cure. Also, the first song on this album is Boys Don't Cry. This is The Cure's greatest hits, and I think it is very appropriate to what's happening with Fanboy as well. So I think this is a brilliant soundtrack to that. So I think The Cure is perfect for this book. The other one, and it may be a little bit cliche, but some of the things that Fanboy is thinking in his head, Marilyn Manson. I personally really love Marilyn Manson. This is Marilyn Manson's greatest hits. I think for the harder edge, the kind of more thoughts where he's thinking he wants to get back at people, and Kira as well. I think Marilyn Manson, I think we're starting off with The Cure in this book, and I think we're going to end up with Marilyn Manson. So I think those two albums will really, and I'll be putting those on while I read the rest of this book. Then the next one is a book, again, this is an old favourite from way back when I was younger. This is Dead Witch Walking by Kim Harrison. It's the first book in a gorgeous urban fantasy series that I love. The Dead Witch in the title, Rachel Morgan, is like a bounty hunter, and she sets up her own bounty hunting firm with a vampire, Ivy, who I adore, and a pixie called Jenks, who are her partners. And they live in the Hollows, which is kind of the, I'd say the kind of the creature part of the city, and then you've got the humans as well. But it's a great book. I love this urban fantasy. It's one of my all-time favorites. And I thought Holes Live Through This is perfect to go with this. So first of all, kind of the kick-ass badness of both Ivy and Rachel kind of really dovetails with the wonderful Courtney I love, who I adore. And then the title, Live Through This, Dead Witch Walking, basically implies that she's left her kind of official job to open this agency of her own, her and Ivy, and people don't like that, so they're out to get her. There's a lot of people out to get her in this book, so I think Live Through This is the perfect combination for this book. Then the second last one I have, again, is one of my all-time favourites books. It's this one over here. It's Silk by Kiernan. And this is kind of set in the 90s, kind of very punk, goth, alternative culture. It is a horror, it's a psychological thriller, it is weird fiction. It's just one of my all-time favourites. And a book, and an album that I think goes really well with it is this album here. It's Fluids, and this is Not Everyone Gets a Happy Ending. And that is very much the case in this book. Not everyone gets a happy ending. I think these songs are like heavy, they're dark, they're thumping, and I think they go so well with this book. I think the pairing of that is just sublime, and it's definitely something that when I'm rereading, I throw on Fluid. It's a brilliant band, by the way, and these two things, just kind of the intensity and the darkness and the heaviness, I think go really, really well together. And then the last one I have, and this is a classic. I freaking love this book, and it is this one over here. It is Queen of the Damned by Anne Rice. It's going to be on my TBR for Reading Rush. Now, well, when I say I've watched the film, I've read some of this book. I think I'm going to read the rest of it for Reading Rush, but that's another video. Anyway, so we've got Queen of the Damned. This is the third book in the Anne Rice Chronicles, Vampire Chronicles, the Anne Rice Chronicles. The first one's Interview with the Vampire, one of my all-time favourite books. Second one is The Vampire Lestat, and this one is Queen of the Damned, and it's by Koja, the Queen of the Vampires. And there's a brilliant movie that stars the beautiful Aaliyah as Koja in it. The album is I Am Ghost. So I Am Ghost, this is Lover's Requiem, is the title of the album. I Am Ghost are gorgeous, dark, goth metal, death rock kind of band. This album is gorgeous. It starts with like a requiem, beautiful instrumental kind of operatic requiem, and then goes into the heaviest of heavy, dark metal songs. There's a song called Pretty People Never Lie, Vampires Never Really Die. Lover's Requiem is about, there's a lot of referencing of vampires in the lyrics to this particular album. I really love it. It's dark, it's heavy, it's amazing. I think there's a lot of references back to Lestat and the fact that he is now a pop star. And he makes these kind of vampire songs. So I think this album goes really well when you're reading this book and you have those kind of references in it. And yeah, it also evokes that darkness and that heaviness, and you can see the vampires dancing to it in the nightclubs. So that's my last rec. Like I said, let me know if you enjoyed that. Thank you all for watching. I hope everyone's still well and safe. And I will speak to you all again very soon. Bye-bye.